So here from verses 21 to 21 to 27, we are seeing that how Arjuna is overwhelmed with compassion, looking at all his relatives on the opposite side. So after Krishna parked the chariot in between the two armies, Arjuna was seeing all his friends, relatives, and family on the other side, and he becomes very confused and overwhelmed with compassion. How can I kill my family? So that is his feeling. So here the character analysis is Krishna is humbly following the order of Arjuna. There is a very specific word which comes in the verse 21, I suppose, like it is Achyuta. And Prabhupada writes a long purport that how the Lord is infallible. He never fails from his duty of trying to serve uh, his devotees. So that word is very important. So Prabhupada does elaborate in his purport about that how the Lord is infallible and he is great, but still he is taking a humble position to follow the orders of Arjuna. And Krishna specifically parks between Bhishma and Drona because he does understand Arjuna is like very attached to them. So it's in one way, Krishna is also orchestrating the bewilderment of Arjuna for everybody's benefit. And also we can see the change of emotions in Arjuna very starkly. When he requests Krishna, he says, oh, I want to see all those evil-minded, all those people who have come to support the evil-minded sons of Dhritarashtra. He's very strong when he says, hey, take me there. I want to see all the opposition army. However, as soon as he sees them, his emotions change. So we can see the words very clearly, how he addresses before two verses in verse 23 and how he addresses in the coming verses 28, 29, we will see there is a stark difference. So the change of emotions we get to see. And the reason for that change of emotions is usually, is surely because he has his attachments and the emotions can overpower our resolve because he is not guided by his. Okay, whoever is having their thing, if you're not like planning to speak, please and like kind of mute yourself if you have noise around you, please. And the main lesson that we are here is the reason for Arjuna's change of emotions is his intelligence is there, but it is overwhelmed by his emotions at this point of time. So that's the reason he's completely overwhelmed. And that is due to attachments. Specifically here, Prabhupada writes, because of the bodily attachments, he is feeling overwhelmed. Prabhupada takes both the angles here. At some places, he says, see how soft-hearted Arjuna is. And other places, he says, see how weak-hearted Arjuna is. Because emotions can be arising from a soft heart, and emotions could be arising from a weak intelligence or a sentimental place. When the mind is overpowering the intelligence, emotions can come from there also. So Prabhupada uses both the angles, that how on one hand he has a soft heart, especially when he is thinking about, oh, why should I kill for the sake of enjoying power and wealth. On the other hand, Prabhupada also takes that it could be a weak heart because he is running away from his duties, and just because of bodily attachments, he is not willing to perform his duty. So the both angle is there. It's a lesson for us to understand how our emotions could be coming from either from a soft heart, or the emotions could be coming because our intelligence is not strong. So we need to understand where it is coming from when we go through, because the greatest battles we go through are within our own minds. That is the greatest battles we go through on a daily basis. So that is why here Arjuna is representing our position in terms of that. So reflection question for all of you or for all of us could be, so what is the greatest battle with our own mind that we have to handle every single day? What is the battle that we go through on a daily basis? So that could be something to reflect upon. So moving ahead, So verses 28 to 46, we are seeing how Arjuna goes through this dilemma that has just begun in these previous verses. He gives more arguments and more reasonings, and then the dilemma actually deepens in these verses. He starts becoming very distressed looking at all the relatives on the other side, and he directly, from being a very enthusiastic warrior, he becomes hesitant. He is not willing to fight because he fears the consequences of killing his own kin, because that leads to sinful reactions. So that is his what do you call, like, confusion. And Arjuna also questions the value of victory at the expense of family and friends. Like, what will I do? I will gain um, all the kingdom and wealth. However, I will not be able to enjoy them without the friends and families. So what is the value of having all this wealth and just being alone? Like, everybody will die in the war. And reflecting on the repercussions of destruction of the family lineage in society, the culture will also be affected because there's so many people will be dead. And war always brings in instability in society, in not just in terms of financial, but in terms of cultural and those things also. So these repercussions, he is reflecting upon them. Jeffrey, bro, you want to ask something? Oh, I need to unmute you. Just a minute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. I had been reading these verses, and one of the things that I was noticing was that a lot of the questions that Arjuna is asking at this point are related to kind of social mores, cultural, ethical questions that are really, I can't kill my elders, I can't kill my family, things of that nature. He's not really dealing with anything spiritual at this point. It's very much like a material, these are the rules and regulations. How can I break these rules? And I thought that that was interesting, that he's very emotionally overcome, but the first thing that he's jumping to question outright are the kind of social rules. Is that accurate?
Yeah, true. What you're saying, the observation is true, but he speaks based on the Dharma Shastras. Like, he brings in the Dharma Shastra and he says, oh, it is said here we cannot do that, and it is said there we cannot do that. Later, Krishna will answer that how there are rules, but some rules are higher than the other rules. And for the sake of higher rules, we could break the lower rules. So he will explain that in the future chapters. And also, it's very interesting. Some of those arguments are really strong arguments. Like, kind of, when you first read, yeah, Arjuna, does make so much sense. Like, why would someone want, like, because it feels such common sense. But the whole idea is, on the level of bodily consciousness, it does make a lot of sense. However, when Krishna gives his arguments, he takes on a different perspective, spiritual perspective. So that is why the first lesson he gives is like, we're not this body, we're a spirit soul. Because Krishna could have easily said, all these people on the opposite side, what did they do to you? They put you for 13 years plus of torture, of sending you away from the kingdom, and then disrespecting your family and especially your wife, and trying to kill you guys from very young age. So he could have inspired like that. He could have just said those things like, do you remember what kind of a vow you took before Draupadi? So how can you just back out now? So he could have used those arguments, but Krishna never uses those arguments. That is the easiest argument to use on the battlefield, actually. But he actually uses the another level of motivation. Not just for this situation, he gives lessons for any situation in life. Because if he just used those arguments that anybody could do, that any normal person could have given those reasons to Arjuna. And even to speaking about varnashram, all those things is very easy. Everybody else could have spoken. But Krishna takes the whole conversation on a spiritual level of speaking from the platform of soul, dharma, yoga. So that is the speciality. When God is personally there, he can actually raise the level of the conversation from just the worldly perspective to all the way making the whole thing into a yogic shastra by bringing in yoga, dharma, and on the platform of the soul. So that is why the general consciousness, Arjuna represents that. And predominantly, most people will never cross this consciousness of Arjuna in their life. So that is why this first chapter is very important for all of us, because time and again we come to that consciousness back, even while practicing. So yeah, these are my some of, yeah, thank you, Krishna. Indra Devi, I'll also unmute you just a minute. Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking at the very end where he finally asked Krishna, for his guidance. I was thinking, oh, that's another big lesson in this first chapter, how you need someone to help you with these things. You should go to a spiritual
Teacher.
elder, right? And so that was a big thing at the end. After all of these great arguments that he made, all this reasoning that he gives him, he's still distressed, but then he thinks, oh, well, actually, can you help me? And so that was kind of a huge thing for me to wake up to.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it just it will continue like in the second chapter, whatever you're saying. He does surrender to Krishna. Arjuna, ultimately he says, I'm so confused. I know I made so many arguments. However, I'm confused. Please guide me. He does that to take surrender of Krishna. Thank you for that reflection. And here, so after he speaks about the family lineage and social cultural destruction, Arjuna questions the morality of the action. Like, how can we actually kill just for the sake of gaining power, wealth? Maybe they are like evil, maybe they are greedy, but I don't want to be like that. So Krishna can say, see, you are speaking about all the elders and the family people, but why are they here? Why don't they think the same way you are thinking? So that's when Arjuna is saying, okay, maybe they are greedy. We don't care. But I don't want to be like that. They may be blinded by greed, and they may be blinded by their own desires, but we know better, so we could do something better. Why should we also behave like them? So that is his argument. So finally he becomes completely overwhelmed by grief, and then he says, no, I cannot fight. So this is the first time he is like kind of verbalizing. So far he was justifying, and then now he verbalizing, saying, and then I will not fight. And then he drops the weapons and he sits down on the chariot, saying, it's not going to happen. I will not be able to fight. And that brings us to the second chapter. Before going there, we will quickly see what's Arjuna change of emotions. We can very drastically see the words that he uses, verses 23, 24, and the words that he uses in the verses after 27 is very different. From being a very enthusiastic warrior to a confused warrior, his change of emotions is due to being bewildered by his attachments. And Arjuna's introspection is also one important thing. He's not just going to like he's introspecting what will be the effect of my actions in the future. And also he places people above his ambitions, and he thinks of community welfare over personal profit. So there are a lot of good perspectives that we can take from Arjuna, and Prabhupada does take those perspectives in his purports. He shows that this shows the soft heart of Arjuna, a gentleman side of him. However, also there is a downside to it. That's a different story. So that's why these are the lessons we could learn from Arjuna's mood, that how we can think before we act, weigh the consequences of our actions. And this is a quote, so that the brave man is not one who is not one who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And we will see in the coming chapter how Arjuna conquers that fear through getting counsel from Arjuna. By taking a higher guidance, by taking spiritual guidance from Krishna, he overcomes that fear. So we are human beings. It's very natural that we will go through emotions, we will go through confusions, we will go through fear, and it's a natural thing. However, that does not make us any less. Rather, if we can actually get the right counsel, understand the right values, and gradually practice those values, then we'll be able to conquer that fear, confusion, and the overwhelming emotions. And one reflection exercise for all of us is, what do we do to overcome our fears? Like, it's very natural. There are certain things that causes internally fear, worry, anxiety, sometimes worry about a future problem that could come up, or a past worry, or a fear about how this will happen in the future and all that. So how do we actually manage that? And also, this is one food for thought. Faith is usually considered the capacity to endure uncertainty, because uncertainty is very disturbing to the minds of everyone in general. However, for devotees, faith could be a great capacity and a great advantage for us as spiritual practitioners to endure the uncertainties of life. Because everybody, one thing common for everyone is certain for everybody is the uncertainty in life, and everybody goes through in different flavors, in different quantities at different times. However, the most important ability to endure that uncertainty is faith. So that's a food for thought. So these are some of the verses, these are all of the verses in the chapter 1 that we saw, from everybody gathered to fight, and Duryodhana's speaking to his warriors, trying to encourage them. And then we see Arjuna asking Krishna to go see the opposite army. And when he sees the opposite army, he gets overwhelmed with emotions. And that's where we leave this chapter. And then we will begin the second chapter. One, like, when I'm setting up for the second chapter, if anybody would like to share something, please feel free to unmute yourself and share so far any reflections that we saw here.
One thing when Indira shared that about surrendering to Krishna, my experience, I can take this with my own experience, where addiction had beaten me so badly. I mean, no matter how hard I tried, I was losing extremely. And I take that now today as like, wow, you know what? I don't need that extreme to be beaten that badly. I will, now I surrender very easily. So what I wrote was, so now it's easier for me to be willing to surrender and let go of my attachments through daily life. Like, I don't have to, it's not that big a struggle. I don't need to be beaten too badly to say, hey, maybe there's another way to do this, and to be a little more, to be humble in my actions.
Thank you. That is very relevant in lives of everybody. It comes in different shapes for each one of us. However, once we go through a bad phase, there is a silver lining to it, because we learn to become humble, and we kind of know how can we not get too much beatings, like, because it's kind of a lesson that we learn from that experience. So it's very close. It's close to home. So thank you, Harikrishna. Yes, Indradev.
No, I was also going to say, when you asked the reflection, what do we do to overcome our fear? And then you gave that great saying, faith is a capacity to endure uncertainty. Yeah, to remember that constantly, right? Because I was thinking how this morning when I was chanting, I was in a better mood than I was yesterday. And I was trying to figure out what that was. How was the mood so different? How was that the heart so open? But it was, I think if I can remember to have faith, that Krishna has a plan and that I'm not the controller of that plan, I might be happier most of the time.
Thank you. Yes, Gokula?
Krishna just talks about how this body is not the is that this is just a material body and it's a soul first, because Arjuna was like, why should I kill my relatives? And then Krishna, if he explains that this is just a material body and they can get another bodies after they die, then Arjuna becomes more comfortable to fight.
Thank you, Gokula. You're ahead of us, and we'll be discussing that now. Thank you for sharing. And